storybooks say it was a wolf. The survivors swore it was the devil. But the French crown's records, kept secret for centuries, tell a much more disturbing story. In the small village of Saint-Étienne-de-Lugdarès, 14-year-old Jeanne Boulet went out to look after her animals. She never came back for dinner. When the men from the village found her, the forest was completely silent. It wasn't just a simple animal attack. Her body was torn apart with a precision that didn't match a normal wolf's bite. The strangest part, the animal didn't touch the sheep, it only wanted the girl. This was the first victim, but not the last. In the following weeks, the Gévaudan Valley turned into a slaughterhouse. A woman in Masméjeanne, a boy in Chaila, a young girl in Saint-Alban. The reports from that time, written by doctors and royal officials, began to show a terrifying pattern. The creature preferred the head and neck of its victims. In many cases, it removed them cleanly. France had just lost the 7 Years' War and felt humiliated. The country was broke and people were feeling hopeless. What started as a local problem soon grew into a national crisis that even reached King Louis XV himself in Versailles. You need to understand the place. Gévaudan was one of the most isolated parts of France. It was a maze of rocky peaks, deep canyons, and weather that made it impossible to see for weeks. Here, myths and reality mixed together easily. However, the stories from those who escaped weren't about myths. Witnesses described something never seen before in Europe. An animal as big as an ox, but as agile as a big cat. It had reddish fur, a black stripe down its back, and an unusually long tail with a tuft of hair at the end. Some swore the creature could walk on its back legs, and that lead bullets simply bounced off its skin as if it were wearing natural armor. Panic turned into mass hysteria. Farmers stopped sending their children to the fields. Business stopped. Gévaudan was under attack by an invisible enemy, and the king, who needed a victory to restore his honor, decided to send his best weapon, the army. Because of pressure from the local nobles and the newspapers, Louis XV gave a special order. He sent Captain Jean-Baptiste Duhamel and his soldiers to kill the creature. Duhamel didn't waste any time. He organized the biggest hunt Europe had ever seen. He called for more than 30,000 volunteers and offered a reward as big as a normal worker's yearly salary. The valleys of Gévaudan were filled with blue uniforms, bayonets, and hunting dogs. It looked like a real war against just one animal. But the Beast of Gévaudan didn't fight like a normal animal. While Duhamel sent his men to one valley, the creature attacked in another one miles away. The soldiers' reports were confusing. They said the beast jumped over wide rivers in one go and could avoid traps with almost human cleverness. A frustrated Duhamel wrote in his journals that they weren't fighting a wolf, but an intelligent monster. After searching for months, the army only managed to kill normal wolves. Meanwhile, human bodies kept appearing on the trails, often with their clothes folded or placed in a strange way next to them. While the army was failing, the story became the first global media sensation. Thanks to the new newspapers, the beast was what everyone talked about in coffee houses from London to Paris. Artists drew it as a strange monster with a man's face and fish scales, but in Gévaudan no one was laughing. There was only pure terror. The creature had changed. It stopped hiding. It began to attack in broad daylight, even entering villages and dragging victims out of their own homes. Embarrassed by his soldiers' failure, the king took Duhamel off the case and sent the experts, Jean-Charles Denneval and his son. They were known as the best wolf hunters in all of France. In fact, they had killed more than 1,200 wolves during their careers. The Dennevals arrived with a very arrogant attitude. They looked down on the local people's methods. They brought trained tracking dogs and advanced poisons with them. But when they arrived in Gévaudan and saw what was left of the victims, they lost their confidence. They realized that nothing in their past had prepared them for what lived in those mountains. The beast didn't just keep killing. It seemed to be waiting for them. By June 1765, the situation was out of control. The beast wasn't just a predator anymore, it was an insult to King Louis XV's power. Tired of the soldiers' and hunters' failures, the king sent his last choice, Francois Antoine, his personal gun-bearer and a respected knight. Antoine wasn't just any soldier. He was the king's right-hand man for hunting. He was extremely precise and very disciplined. He arrived in Gévaudan with a clear message: I'm not here just to hunt, I'm here to end this by order of the state. On September 20th, 1765, near Chazes Abbey, Antoine and his crew spotted a wolf of massive proportions. With a clean shot to the right eye, Antoine brought the beast down. It weighed in at 60 kilos and was nearly 2 meters long. Local surgeons carried out an immediate autopsy. In their report, they stated that the animal had scars from previous encounters, and that its size was unheard of for a European wolf. Antoine wrote to Versailles, "The beast is dead." The body was quickly sent to the capital to be preserved. The victory was absolute. The taxidermied animal was put on display in the gardens of Versailles before an awestruck crowd. Louis XV granted Antoine a small fortune and titles of nobility. The international press declared that the terror was over and that French civilization had triumphed over the wilderness. In Gévaudan, church bells rang out, and children went back to playing on the trails. The fear seemed to have vanished with that shot in Chazes, but the peace lasted exactly 2 months. On December 2nd, 1765, 2 kids were attacked near Bessères-Sainte-Marie. A few days later, a young girl died in the exact same way as Jeanne Boulet had a year before. The beast was back, or even worse, it had never left. The leaders of Gévaudan sent desperate letters to Versailles, begging for the royal hunters to come back. But the king's response was ice cold, total silence. Admitting the beast was still alive meant coming clean about the Wolf of Chazes being a total fake and that the crown had lied to save face. Louis XV banned newspapers from ever mentioning the attacks again. Officially, the beast was dead. Unofficially, the people of Gévaudan had been left to fend for themselves right in the lion's den. The king and wiped off the official maps. The people of Gévaudan realized that their salvation wouldn't come from Versailles, but from their own ranks. That was when Jean Chastel stepped up. Chastel wasn't exactly a storybook hero. He was a local farmer with a shady reputation. Word was that he knew the secrets of witchcraft and had even done time for attacking royal guards while the Denivals were around. But Chastel knew the woods like the back of his hand. He knew they weren't just hunting a wolf, but something that needed a spiritual fix, or at least a much more lethal one. On June 19th, 1767, almost 3 years after the first attack, the Marquis of Abcher put together one last private hunt at Mount Mouchet. Jean Chastel took his post, but he wasn't alone with his weapon. Legend has it that while he waited, he was reading the Holy Scriptures. Suddenly, the brush parted. The beast appeared less than 20 meters away from him, but it didn't pounce. According to Chastel's account, the creature stopped and stared him down, as if it recognized him. Chastel closed his book, put away his glasses, and with an eerie calm, fired his musket loaded with 2 blessed silver bullets. This time, the beast didn't get back up. The body was taken to Besque Castle, where the royal notary, Roch-Étienne Marin, performed the most detailed autopsy of the 18th century. What he found defied all logic. The Marin report, which is still around today, describes a creature with strange membranes over its eyes and an odd set of teeth. But here's the chilling part. In its stomach, they found the remains of the last victim, a little girl, including a human femur. The report wrapped up by saying that, while it was a canine, its build and muscles didn't match any species known in the lands of France. Chastel took the carcass to Versailles, hoping to get the reward he was owed, but the king, grossed out by the smell of the rotting body and terrified that Antoine's fraud would be exposed, ordered the animal to be buried right away in a secret spot. The beast was wiped from official history, but in the heart of Gévaudan, the scar never really healed. Was it a hybrid trained by a killer? A hyena brought from Africa by some eccentric noble? Or something that the science of the time just couldn't pin down? Today, the woods of Gévaudan are silent, but the Grimoire Codex knows that the real story doesn't end with a gunshot. It ends with the doubt that lingers when the lights go out. If you're brave enough to keep exploring the darkest corners of our past, hit that subscribe button, because some chronicles are written in ink and others are written in blood.